The power steering system on the Accord needs some attention. Not only does it have a couple leaks, but that power steering fluid definitely needs some service. So let's see if we can't get it squared away. Let's get to work.
Okay, just for reference, here's our power steering pump, and here's our power steering fluid reservoir right there. Now, in this case, we have a leak here, at least one leak there. Looks like the hoses are kind of leaking a little bit, or at least seeping a little bit down there, and we have some really old nasty fluid in there. So because we got some leaks and some other stuff going on, we're going to do a conventional power steering fluid change where we're going to pump all this old fluid out, and then while we have it out, then we'll do some repairs. We'll put some new O-rings in, we'll replace this hose, and we'll replace the clamps. So let's get to work. Sorry about the noise, it's hot, I got to run the cooler. Alright, first thing I'll do is take some brake clean. We'll see if we can't clean things up a little bit so we don't introduce garbage into our power steering system. Now, because we're servicing this the conventional way, where we're going to pump the fluid out, we're going to have to disconnect this return line. This is the line that comes from the power steering pump. And we don't want, if we just disconnect it now, all the fluid is going to come out. We're going to make a big mess. So we want to drain this fluid down at least below that line there. So that's what I'm going to do next. And to get that fluid out of the reservoir, I'm just going to use this manual pump it into this. This is for used power steering fluid. And we want to try to keep power steering off belts. And that right there is why I like to put some kind of rag or something. Just try to catch that stuff, because it will find a way to get on your belt and other stuff. I'm just going to pull this 10 out for the washing reservoir, just so I have some play, so I can get it up out of my way and move it wherever I want. I can probably pull it out if I wanted to, but then I take a chance of getting debris in there, so we'll just leave it like that. Now it's out of our way. Alright, we'll just pop this out of its housing. Now we got to get to this clamp right here and get it off. It's at the bottom, so it's a little bit difficult to grab from right here. I may end up going right here. I do have the headlight removed because I'm doing some other work on this car. If I didn't, I can still go through here, but either way, we got to get that clamp loosened and pulled back so we can get this hose off. Alright, now this is where hose clamps can help. We just grab that, twist it a little bit and get it off. I think this one will work. Alright, now if we fire the car up right now, power steering is going to shoot out of this hose right here and make a mess, so we don't want that. So what I do is I take some hose that works, that fits in there, put it in there, and now it'll come out here, and we'll just put this end into a bucket. What size is this? I just looked and already forgot. This is just some old fuel hose that I had laying around, 3/16, and it looks like the vinyl tubing that I have is 1/2 inch inside diameter. So that's all I'm using. I just have it adapted. You can use whatever will fit in there. We'll just put that down. I'll put this clamp back on there to help hold it a little bit, and then we'll pump it out. I'll set this back in its housing right after I drip some power steering fluid everywhere. This is why I empty it, to try not to make a mess like that, but I don't want this to go into this. So we'll put it back there, and now you can see I have the pump, or I have the hose coming over here, and we'll just turn the vehicle on and pump it into this bucket. Now you could turn the steering wheel lock to lock if you want, to try to get every last bit out. I'm just going to turn the car on, let it idle for a few seconds and turn it off, just till I see that most of the fluid is already pumped out. And you can see I didn't run it for too long. That gets about 90% or more of that old dirty crap out. So I'm happy with that. Now we can keep moving forward. Alright, now we'll get this off. This isn't a perfect seal on this, but that's fine. It doesn't need to be perfect. We just need it good enough so we don't make a complete mess. Alright, now it really doesn't matter what step we do. We got to get these O-rings replaced and get this hose replaced and get new clamps on this one. So, seeing as this was right here, we'll just pull this down and see if we can't get this hose off. Alright, this way we can just pull this reservoir right out and go clean this thing up. And while I'm thinking of it, here's the hose that goes here, and there's your part number. Hopefully you can read that. And for the two clamps, I'll be replacing those from Honda. I try to use the original clamps if I can. And if you are wanting to replace the cap for the reservoir, there's the part number there. Some Honda dealers won't let you buy just one. You got to buy multiples though, just be aware of that. Alright, got the hose back on. I'm going to go with that location for our new hose clamp. I like that because I can get down to it and remove it if I need to without too much trouble. And it's still out of the way. If you need to service the belt, you won't catch your hands or clothes on it or rip your gloves. So it's another thing to think about. But I like that location right there. We're going to keep it like that. Now I don't have the part number for the other hose, the one I'm not replacing, because I can't find it. Here is the part number for the clamp for the other hose, right there, in case you ever need to replace yours. Now I took a better look at this hose right here. I see no evidence of leaks coming from this clamp and this connection, so I'm going to leave that. Better to not open up a can of worms if we can avoid it. So I just cleaned this up. I will put a brand new clamp right here, and then we'll put our reservoir back in and get it installed, and then we can work over here. Alright, here's our old hose clamp, and it came off like this. So we need to put it back on the same way so we don't create leaks, or we help fix the ones we have. So we'll just get that in place, just like that. Alright, we'll just get this back in place and this connected. And slide our clamp back on. We'll try to get it right back where it was. Alright, that looks exactly like it was before. Alright, seeing as we're right here, we'll just kind of pop this back in its housing. This lower hose is a bit of a pain. Not much play in that lower hose, so it's difficult to get that back on. So this will be fine right there. Now what we'll do is we'll pop that off and replace this O-ring, and we'll do the same with that. This thing doesn't want to play nice, does it? Alright, now we'll just pop this off, 10mm. We'll clean it up and go grab a new O-ring. Alright, here's our new O-ring for that. There's our part number. And I'm just going to use a pick to get this off. This is plastic, so it's not supposed to hurt this. So we'll just get it off like that. And we'll get this cleaned up a little bit. I think I'll just hit it with a little brake clean, and then we'll install that one. Now when we install these, we want to coat them with just a little bit of new power steering fluid to help them with the install. Alright, we got it cleaned up, new O-ring. That's a little bit of brand new power steering fluid. We'll just get that coated and get this on here, just like that. Alright, I already cleaned up the mating side, so we can just pop that into place. Get our bolt started. Alright, both of these bolts are typically 8 foot-pounds, that's the torque. So we just want to get it snug. I mean, I'm just using a 1/4 inch. We can double check it to make sure it's to 8 foot-pounds if we want, but not very tight. Don't over tighten these. Alright, 8 foot-pounds is 96 inch-pounds, so we'll just double check real quick. Alright, now we'll get this O-ring. So we'll just loosen these two up and pull it off. Same as before, we try not to make a mess all over our belts. Same length, so you don't have to worry about mixing them up. And we'll just pop it up out. Come on. There's our O-ring we need to grab. There we go. He didn't want to come out. Alright, here's our new O-ring, straight from Honda. There's the part number for this one. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to take it out, put a little bit of brand new Honda power steering fluid, and I only recommend using Honda power steering fluid on Honda power steering systems. But we'll put some new fluid on there and we'll get it installed. Alright, same as before. I already cleaned up the mating surfaces and put new power steering fluid on here, so now we just need to get it installed without losing it. Okay, there we go. Looks good. Now we can just set it right back into place. Press it firmly down. Now we can bolt it back up. And just like the other one, these are 8 foot-pounds. We'll double check with the torque wrench. And this is why I tell you to not over tighten those bolts. The owner of the vehicle we're looking at right here replaced their power steering pump and over tightened those bolts. And as soon as they fired up the vehicle for the first time, those bolt heads snapped right off and threw power steering fluid everywhere. The owner was lucky though, it only cost him 2 new bolts. Alright, now we got to fill the system back up. And like I said, I only recommend Honda power steering fluid on these. We'll fill it up. I like to do it nice and slow. I'll fill it all the way up, and then I'll just run the car for just a few seconds, because it's going to pull that fluid in and be low again, and I don't want it to be pulling air into the system. So we'll shut it off. I'll top it off. I keep doing that for a few times until I'm satisfied that the system is fairly full. Now it's still going to have air at that point, and then we'll turn it on. We'll move the wheels lock to lock all the way to the right, all the way to the left, and that'll get most of the air out. We'll do that a couple times, and checking the fluid in between, make sure it's all good to go. That's how I like to do it. I know some people will run the car and just try to keep adding. Typically you'll suck a lot of air into the system. I don't like to do it like that. These are pretty finicky, these systems. I don't like to run them dry, and I don't like to introduce air in there if I can avoid it, so that's why I do it the way I do. And to do this job, probably going to need 3 or 4 bottles of this stuff. And I'm going to fill it up to just a little bit above the upper lie, because I know it's going to suck it right in right away. Alright, now before we start it, let's put this back in place so we don't damage it. Alright, now I'm just going to turn the car on for a couple seconds, and I'm going to turn it off and let that fluid get up into the pump. And you can see it pulled it down pretty fast, almost to the bottom. So I'll put some more fluid in there and we'll do it again. Doing the same thing, just a little bit above the max line. Alright, that time we only dropped a little bit, so I'm going to go ahead and turn the steering wheel lock to lock this time, and then we'll check it. Alright, that's looking pretty good. I don't see a lot of air bubbles down in the fluid, so that's good. Alright, I'm going to let it run for a while, and while it's doing that, we're going to look for leaks. We're going to double check our work, make sure none of our work is leaking. We're going to keep an eye on our level, make sure it doesn't drop too low. If it does, we'll have to add fluid. And we'll turn the steering lock to lock a few times, just in case there's any air inside the system. We'll try to help it out. It might look kind of dark on the video, but if we put a light on there, you can see that fluid looks good now. Alright, I got the fluid topped off to the max line right there, so it's perfect. We got our cap back on, we'll double check our work, we got everything back in place, and I looked, we don't have any leaks, we don't have any noise from the pump. I think we're good to go.
Well, that's it for this one. If you're enjoying this series, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. Thanks for watching.